Hi everyone, welcome back to my lab and today's video, which is going to be my brief review of the Jeffree Star and Morphe collaboration. I'm also going to be sharing my experience winning a meet and greet at the grand opening of the Morphe store in the Chicago Watertower Place. In the video, I will of course share swatches, a demo of how I created the eye look, and my thoughts on the collaboration in general. Before we get into the video, if you're new here, I'm Yori. Thank you for joining me for today's video. Hopefully you'll enjoy this one. Consider subscribing and joining my makeup family. I upload 3 times a week on Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday at 9 a.m. Central. Now without any further delay, let's go ahead and get into it. This collection consisted of an eyeshadow palette, a brush set, a setting spray, and a set of sponges. I decided to pick up the eyeshadow palette, I picked up the setting spray, and I picked up a couple of brushes because they were sold individually. Let's talk about the palette first. This is the outer packaging. It's all pink and it says Morphe by Jeffree Star. On the back side, you do have a message from Jeffree Star as well as ingredients for both the eyeshadows as well as the pressed pigments, because you do have both in this particular palette. You have information on the binding here. This particular palette has a 12-month shelf life. It was made in China, and I'm looking for information about the amount of product that you get, and I am not seeing it on the box. The amount of product is actually written on the palette itself, which is 51 grams total weight, and you are receiving 30 shades, although I don't believe that each specific shade will be the same amount. So just the total weight will be 51 grams. This is called an Artistry palette. The palette itself is much thinner than the packaging. The packaging had a bubble wrap insert. When you open it up, there was a protective sheet to protect the eyeshadows, and this is what they look like. You have a very nice mirror. The palette does not fold all the way back, which I personally think would have been a nice touch, especially because it's so big. In the event you don't want to use the mirror, it becomes a little more compact if you can fold it back. Here are the 30 shades that you are receiving. You get a very nice mixture of matte and metallic shades, and you do have a pressed glitter. The names are all written on the palette, which I really appreciate it, so you don't have to hold on to the plastic sleeve if you choose not to. In terms of sizing, the palette is a little bit on the larger side, although it's very thin. For size comparison, I'm putting my original Naked palette, so it is about the same width, but you can see it's much taller, and then along the binding you can see the Naked palette is a little bit thicker as well. So not the smallest palette in the world, but not as bulky as the Morphe brushes palettes typically are, and there is an efficient use of space inside the palette itself. I wouldn't say that there's a lot of wasted space. You're getting a good amount of product, and taking that into account, it's not too bulky. It does have a magnetic closure and a mirror, as I stated in the beginning. This palette retails for $35, but you can of course use a discount code from many of the Morphe affiliates and receive 10% off. That's what I chose to do when I purchased the palette. The palette is really nicely arranged in rows. You can see you can create a beautiful eye look if you focus on the rows, but one thing that I noticed as I played with the palette a little bit more is that you have some beautiful quads in here. I mean, take a look at this end right here. That would be a beautiful quad. This would be a beautiful quad. The greens over here as well. So I actually really like the way the eyeshadows are arranged, even though like instinctively you would want like shimmers and then mattes on the other side, kind of like Lorac, or you would want it in color families. But the way that it's arranged, you can really see the different options that you have to create. I was really drawn to the color story. I don't purchase too many Morphe palettes anymore, but this one was really interesting to me because the color story is not your typical 50 shades of brown or a single tonality. This has a lot of variety, and you have a lot of flexibility in the looks that you can create. You can take it more neutral for an everyday, and you can definitely do something bold and vibrant as well. In terms of the formulation of the shadows, I have to say that I prefer the formulation of the mattes. There's not too many repeated shades in terms of tonality, although I did find that there are some similarities. For example, the shade Mr. Diva and the shade Channel to me look very similar on the eye. I've used both of them. Same for Pink Fleet and Mogul. Even though it looks like there's a different depth there, I find that when applied to the eye, they look quite similar as well. Other than that, you're not going to find the typical repetitious shade selection that a lot of Morphe palettes have. So that's something that I appreciate in this palette. In terms of the metallic finishes, I have to say they're not all the same. I did use this one, which is called Custom Rings, the silver one. I love it. That one performs really well well. It's a really nice silver. I can say the same for the shade Designer Label, which I added to my eye look as a brow bone and inner corner highlight. It's a really pretty shade for that regard. Now, originally when I saw this row, I was thinking, oh wow, they look really, really similar. And in a sense they do. I mean, the shade Lynn here is a matte shade, so that distinguishes it from the others, which are more metallic, but they do have slightly varying tones, which will give you a really cohesive look. If you're focusing on the green, then Glam Rapids would be an appropriate inner corner highlight, and so on. So I can kind of understand the selection in the first row now that I see it in person a little bit better. The metallic formula is not consistent throughout, however. Like I said, the shade Custom, Rims, and Designer Label are beautiful metallic shades, but some of the other ones you have to work with them a little bit more, like Wand Noise and Dog Mom, which are two of the shades that I applied to my eyes today. I did apply them damp, and I also found that they do apply better with your finger if you choose to do so. I typically don't prefer to work with my fingers, but I will if it'll get the shadow to perform a little bit better. So again, I don't think the formulation is the same across all of the metallics, and my preference for the palette would be the matte shades. I think that they were really well selected and they perform really well. You can get them to work. They're a little bit powdery in my opinion, more so than other Morphe shadows that I've used in the past, but that gives you really nice color payoff and a really nice blend. I would just suggest tapping off your brush as you're working. Today I had my face makeup done when I created this eye look, and I didn't have any problem ruining my complexion makeup, but you can always do your eyes first if you want to be a little less careful. So overall, I think the palette is nice. I was recently doing a haul update where I mentioned the Jawbreaker palette and how much I love it. This is not Jawbreaker quality. It's not Jawbreaker prices. So if you're willing to put in a little extra work, you can save a little bit of money and get some similar looks, but my preference remains with the Jawbreaker palette. But I think when you consider the price of this one, it's really not bad. Last time I did not purchase the brush set. I did go take a look at them to see how I felt about them, and honestly I wasn't too impressed with the original brush set. They felt very, very light in my hands, and the brushes were not the best quality in my opinion. However, this time around he released another brush set at $42, which were just eye brushes, and one nice thing that they did is begin to sell the brushes separately. When I looked at the eye brush set as a whole, it's a very nice set. If you're a beginner, it's a very good place to start because you have a good variety of both shading and blending brushes, including some of these smaller blending brushes that someone with hooded and smaller eyes like myself can really appreciate it. There were a couple of other brushes in the set, like an eyeliner brush and a brow brush, that I already have in my collection a couple of times over, so picking up the set didn't really make sense for me. But if you are a beginner and you don't have too many brushes, I think the set will do you well. Again, like the original set, there are some brushes that are completely synthetic, and those are the ones with the pink bristles like these, and then there are some that are a mixture, I believe, of natural hair and synthetic fibers, which are the white brushes like this one. I've already put my brushes through a washing cycle so that I can speak to you with regard to how they retain their shape. The pink ones retain their shape perfectly. The natural hair brushes have a tendency to flay out a little bit, and that's something that I noticed even on my Smith brushes, which this is a Smith 235, similar shape. You'll see this in the demo later on, which is why I was really interested in this brush. It has sort of that arrowhead shape, which if you have a natural crease and you use this vertically, it'll give you a beautiful blend in your crease. I usually use it more horizontally because I have no crease and I have to create one, but still it's not a bad brush. In terms of the prices, when you purchase them individually, the number 6, which is called the Rule Blender, was $8. The number 12 is called Sport Mode, and that one was $7. And the number 13 is called Palm Crease. That one was $6. I'm looking at my receipt. You can also use the discount codes for these as well to get 10% off. Another thing that I wanted to mention with regard of the brushes, these are not heavy brushes by any means, but they are heavier than the original set in my opinion, and they seem just a little bit more mature and professional than the original set. So I do prefer these brushes to the original. That's why I decided to purchase some, and I never purchased the original set. As I mentioned, there were sponges in the collection, and I opted to pass on the sponges, but I did pick up the Starberry Set and Refresh Mist. I I've always been very curious about this product because people rave about the original Morphe spray. I did do a brief comparison of the ingredients, and I noticed that this one has a slightly different formula, and that's besides just the simple fragrance that it has, which the fragrance is Starberry. When I went for the meet and greet, the entire Morphe store smelled just like this. It smells really good. It's a very nice fruity kind of scent, but it's definitely there. So if you're sensitive to fragrances or you prefer not to have fragrances in your product, you may want to go with the original Morphe setting mist. Now this does seem to have some skin loving ingredients. You do have some glycerin, you also have grapefruit fruit water and kiwi fruit water and some other things. So there's definitely some hydrating ingredients here, and I can definitely tell when I spray this over a powdered face, the powders just meld together and I definitely get a dewy finish, and that mist is really just as lovely as they say. I don't think you could even see it despite the fact that I just sprayed it. It's such a light mist. It's a real pleasure to use. It smells like if you take Runts, you know those little fruity candies you get out of the quarter machines and you crush them up, it kind of smells like that. Like sweet, I don't know, it smells good. It's a pleasant scent and a pleasant thing to use. I do find that it gives a little bit of tack, like when I got a little bit on my neck, it felt a little bit sticky, which made me a little uncomfortable, so I just wiped down the areas where I didn't want to feel that kind of tack. But other than that, I think that the mist is really nice and also worth the price tag. I wanted to share my thoughts with the collection first in case you were just interested in hearing my thoughts about it. I think it's a very nice collection for the price tag. I do still prefer his own brand in terms of eyeshadows and everything else. It's really high quality. This is not at the same level, but again, it's not at the same price tag. I always try to keep the amount paid in perspective when I'm reviewing products. I do want to show you how I created this eye look and also share my experience at the meet and greet in the Chicago store. So hopefully you'll stick around and take a look at that, and I will be back at the end with my final thoughts. So before we get started with the eye look and my little story about my Jeffree Star meet and greet, I did want to tell you that I picked up 3 of the brushes, and the ones that I picked up are the number 13, which is kind of like a pencil brush, but it is a little bit more flexible. I also picked up the JS number 12, which is a small blending brush, and I picked up the JS number 6, which is a blending brush of sorts, but it does have an arrowhead kind of shape that reminds me a lot of the Smith Cosmetics. This one is the 235. So if you look at them, you can see that they both have the arrowhead shape, but the Jeffree Star one is a little bit smaller. I wanted to be sure about the quality of the brushes before I did my review, so I have already put these through a cleaning cycle and they held up quite well. This is the Smith one freshly washed and the Jeffree Star freshly washed. They're equally frizzy, which is not that bad this time around. The Jeffree Star one, by virtue of being smaller, is a little bit more firm. Not necessarily less soft, it's just more firm. So I'm going to use these in my eye look and then a couple of other brushes. I am going to work today, so I can't do anything too crazy. Classes haven't started, so I'm not really going to be seeing students today, but still, since it is a work day, I can't do anything too crazy. So I'm going into Smith 235 and 1985. So for the most part, the store at the Watertower downtown Chicago has been open for a couple of weeks already, because I got an email when they were opening, but they did say that they were going to do a grand opening later on. I hadn't visited it. I had seen the site where it was going to be because I had been in there shopping one day and it looked like it was going to be quite big. So anyway, just this past Wednesday, I received an email in the evening that there was going to be a grand opening, that they were raffling off meet and greets for Jeffree Star, that he was going to be there for the ribbon cutting. Up until very recently, I actually used to work on Saturdays. I would teach classes on Saturdays, and I actually wouldn't have been able to go if that was the case. So I entered. I'm like, why not? You know, you never know. I also sent the email to my daughter so she can try, because I actually learned about Jeffree Star from her. So I just entered. I got a confirmation ticket for just the event itself, you know, just to go in, not necessarily for the meet and greet. All right, so that is a very light peachy shade, very close to my skin tone. same brush, and the shade Channel. Now fast forward to Thursday evening, I received another email saying that I won a meet and greet. And at first I was like, no way. And I double checked and there was a barcode and everything that you were to scan. Now the ticket was a little bit confusing because it basically said that the event was 7:30 in the morning until 9 o'clock at night. Now the mall hours for the Chicago Watertower are really like 10 to 9, I would say. And so I was wondering if I was gonna have to get there that early because I'm not really a morning person. I typically will select my classes in the evenings. I do much better in the evenings for some reason. I've never been a morning person. But anyway, I shared the information with a couple of close friends just to see what they thought. And they're like, you have to go. And I'm like, I'm not sure. I did ask my daughter if she wanted to go because like I mentioned, she was a Jeffree Star fan for a while. She's the one that told me about him and his cosmetics. So I definitely wanted to offer it to her first. But she was working for the day and so she's like, you should definitely go check it out. So I'm like, I'll think about it. I don't know, I just felt a little bit nervous, and then I know that his fan base is younger, right? At least I suspected it, and I got to see that that is truly the case. I mean, there were people there from all walks of life, but a lot of younger people. I'm gonna run this one on my lower lash line as well. So I looked at my ticket and it basically said that we should check in by no later than 12 o'clock in order to redeem our meet and greet. So I'm like, okay, 12 is a lot more doable. In the end, curiosity got the best of me, obviously, and I decided to go, and we ended up getting there at about 9:15, 9:30. Now, I thought I was early. I was feeling pretty good about that time, but when I got there, there were lines already, and I will insert a couple of video clips that I took just so that you can get an idea of what the event was like. JS number 6 in Calabasas. Now on the ticket it was very clear that you were not allowed to take any video and no selfies would be allowed, no gifts, no autographs. The rules were pretty strict. I mean, I didn't know what to expect, so I just made sure my phone was charged and I brought a small purse with me. So when we got there, there was 2 separate lines. There was one line to just get into the store to shop, and that's the line that I'm showing you on video. And then there was another line that was for the meet and greet, and you had to have a barcode. Now they were allowing you one guest to stand in line with you because the meet and greet was not scheduled to start until 12 p.m. and it was close to 9 o'clock, so that was a long wait. So we got in the line. The line for the meet and greet was a little bit further away, which I thought it would have made sense to have the shopping line be a little bit further away and the meet and greet be a little bit closer, so that way the winners, you know, would have the best vantage point for arrival times and things like that. But that could just be me being selfish. When I had been getting ready earlier, I actually wasn't sure like how much to go into makeup and things like that. Like, did I need to show up with a full face? But I knew, I mean, I was just gonna basically get a picture and then move on. There's really not much time for anything else, right? I mean, with 250 winners, the meetup was supposed to last 2.5 hours, I think, only, so there wasn't going to be much time for talking or anything. It was really going to be just a picture. So I wasn't sure exactly how much makeup to wear or what was appropriate, so I just went with kind of my everyday makeup look, no foundation, and I used my Dewey's, which one is it? It's the Pixie Glow Mist. And oh man, did it do me wrong. I mean, it did what it was supposed to. It was definitely glowy, but man, I ended up looking really oily in my picture, and you'll see that. I'll put the unedited picture so that you can laugh. It looks so funny, but I'll do that at the end of the video. So anyway, we were just waiting in line, and when it came closer to the time that he was scheduled to arrive, I had my boyfriend go to an upper floor because the way the water tower is arranged is kind of circular and there are banisters, so you can look all the way down from upper floors, and he would have a better vantage point. He wasn't going to be allowed to be inside for the meet and greet anyway, so he went upstairs to try to capture a little bit on film for me because, like I said, I was a little bit further away. So he got some video footage of the actual ribbon cutting, which is really cool, and I'll put that on screen for you now so you can see. Apparently Nate's birthday is today. I'm filming on Monday, so his birthday is today, but they were singing him happy birthday when he came out as well, which is cute.
We started together, and the fact that all this is happening is so unbelievable. You guys really broke the records for the Morphe Jeffree Star Artistry Palette. So thank you all so much. How's everybody doing that? Any Leos in the building? It's Nathan's birthday on Monday, August 9th. Okay, you guys, we're going to try to meet as many people as possible. Hang out, we're going to give away makeup today, blushes. But first, we need to cut the ribbon and let Chicago know that you're a happy star. What is this thing? We got to make it.
So now at this point, the ribbon cutting was over, and Jeffree Star and his entourage, I think you can even see Lipstick Nick in the video, they went inside and the meet and greet line started moving. So shortly thereafter, my boyfriend came back downstairs and we were just waiting in line until it was our turn. JS13 and Hi Dude. So when it was finally my turn, they were giving raffle tickets. They gave me one, they gave my boyfriend one, and my boyfriend was allowed to enter the store at this point, and I was still lined up around the perimeter of the store to get into the meet and greet area, which was a completely separate room in the back. Now, when I was going in there, they were taking bags, like handbags or anything that you were carrying. You were only allowed to go in with your phone and nothing else, which is pretty high security. There was quite a bit of police presence at the event as well. It was pretty mellow. I mean, no one got crazy. It was fine, but I can understand having security just in case. So when I was ready to go in, I just gave the girl my phone. It was a well-oiled machine the way this was working. And he kind of reached out to me and I was like frozen for a second. I was like, I didn't know what to do. I mean, I don't know. You hear so many stories and you just don't know what to do. And he waved me over. He's like, come on over. Hi, thank you for coming. He sounds exactly like he sounds on his videos too. The voice is very soft, very melodic. And he's like, hi, thank you so much for coming. Let's take a picture. It was just, I don't know, he was just very nice. He gave me a hug before we started taking the picture, and he looks absolutely beautiful, like really beautiful. And I was curious to see, you know, what that YouTube makeup looks like in person. And it's a little bit heavy, but not as heavy as you would think, honestly. Like, one thing I noticed is that he was very mattified outside of the shimmer shadows or highlight, and he looks great in the pictures. Every single picture he looks great. And me, on the other hand, I look oily, which is crazy because you all know I'm a dry skin type. So something to learn for my makeup skills for photography. I mean, it was so bright in that room. It was actually hot because of all the lights. But anyway, he was just very warm. And then when we were finished taking the picture, he's like, oh, I love you so much. Thank you so much for coming, which, I mean, obviously he doesn't love me personally, I guess, just, you know, a general feeling towards his fans. And he gave me another hug, and he kind of just like, you know, had his hand on my back as I was walking away and trying to grab my phone and everything. And they did take a couple of pictures as well, which was really nice because the ticket had said you're entitled to one picture. So you close your eyes, you're done. But no, they actually took a couple of pictures and then they kept the line moving, and that was pretty much it. It was a fun event. It was an interesting experience. Now I know kind of how those things work. But in general, it was a positive experience. I mean, we waited around for so long, but everything was pretty much on time and on schedule. Now, when everything was said and done, I had already picked up my collection on Tuesdays, so I already had the collection, but he stayed there longer for the people that had just come for the grand opening, and he was autographing palettes, throwing out, you know, different items for giveaways, because my boyfriend kept sort of watching the Snapchats of what was going on at the store. I just went around the mall to go shopping because I don't get to the Water Tower too often. It's very expensive to park there, and I don't know. I guess we just take it for granted when we live in Chicago, and we don't go there all that frequently, so I wanted to shop around. But he stayed at the store quite a long time, just interacting with the people that were there, even those that did not win a meet and greet, and I thought that was really great. Eventually he left around, I would say around 4 or 5 p.m. and then he was Snapchatting at the Louis Vuitton store, and then later went on to go bowling somewhere. I mean, when I got home, I was done. I told you guys in my follow-up video, the most recent video I posted before this one, that I fell asleep. I was exhausted, and here he's running a bowling alley and going bowling and all this other stuff, and I was just done for the day. So that makes me feel old. Going into the shade Dog Mom with an e.l.f. C brush. One of the things that I noticed, which I was really expecting, is how young his fan base truly is. Everywhere we walked, we were hearing very small children telling their parents, oh, Jeffree Star is here, Jeffree Star is here. And the parents are like, who? But these children, they're young. Like, it's hard for me to gauge age of children anymore since my daughter is 20. But I would say they were maybe 8 and a little bit older. Definitely teenagers and such, but some really, really young ones. And you know, his channel is sometimes, sometimes it has drug use or references to drugs and things like that. And it's just, I'm of the mindset where yes, you should be aware of your fan base and your viewers, but at the same time, when children are that young, it's really the responsibility of the parents to monitor what their children are watching online. So, I don't know. It was just something I was thinking about since I had, hours to sit around pondering the universe. But overall, it was a very positive experience and really interesting. I'm glad I got to do it. Smith 253 and Wand Noise. I was trying to film with the palette yesterday again, just because I wanted to use as many of the shades as possible so I can let you know, a little bit of a review as well. And I ended up doing an eyeshadow look that kind of resembled the Mexican flag, and it was actually not looking bad. I mean, it was a pretty wild look, but I messed up my eyeliner really bad, and then my eyes started being ridiculous, and so I abandoned the mission. But it was actually looking pretty good. I was sad I didn't get to show you. I'll insert a clip if I still have one of what one eye done looked like. I was kind of trying to follow some of the strategies that Raw Beauty Christie does on her channel, and I thought it was working pretty well, but then I had to go mess up my eyeliner. But it's okay. It gave me some more time with the palette so that I could really tell you how I feel about it. So I think this is pretty much it for the eye look. I'm gonna finish it with some eyeliner and maybe some lashes, and I will be right back. I hope you enjoyed seeing that demo and it was helpful to you in seeing how the eyeshadows perform as well as the brushes. So again, I think it's a good collection. I think you could really enjoy it if you decide to invest in it. It doesn't take the place of Jawbreaker in my opinion, but if Jawbreaker is a little bit out of your budget at this point, you can do very well in some pretty eye looks with this one. Just remember that you're gonna have to work with those metallic shades just a little bit more to get the payoff that you would like. That's everything for this video. Hopefully you enjoyed seeing my meet and greet experience. It was really a positive experience, honestly. I was nervous going into it. I didn't know what to expect. You hear so many stories, but I am of the mind that it's really important to sort of make your own opinion for yourself based on your own experience. And I have to say my own experience was a positive one. I'm glad I went, even though I was dead tired by the end. I was just out. That's everything for this video. However, if you did enjoy it or find it helpful, don't forget to give me a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already because I would love to have you. And I look forward to seeing you again in a couple of days for my next video. I hope you're doing really, really well, and I look forward to seeing you again really soon. Bye-bye.